writing and directing was always the goal. I mean, because it was always about film, right? It was like, as soon as I realized that that's what someone can do, like a lot of like things clicked for me. If you want to become a filmmaker, there's no clear path. I think every person has their own path, and that path, and I think this is the part, like I understood that I think when I started, but the part that I wasn't told is that you don't necessarily define that path. You're a part of defining that path, but you can't look 5 years into the future and know that, like, and see every step that's going to take you there.
Hi, I'm Yaku.
And I'm Mark.
And we're in the same room. We'll see how long this lasts this time. Welcome back to Department Spotlight. It's the show where we speak to our friends and colleagues in the film industry about their experiences.
In this video, we're speaking to Evan Wigdorowitz. He's a writer and director friend of mine and just a personal friend of mine that I've known for years and years and years. We met each other in high school. It's a whole cute thing. And we go into a lovely conversation about his burgeoning, blossoming career going forward into the industry, and he's got lots of interesting tips and just insights into his path and his process. In part one, we're going into his path.
So we're talking all about how he got to where he is right now and just some history and some insights. So let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Evan Wigdorowitz. I'm a writer and director and researcher from Joburg, and I'm currently living in Cape Town. And working sometimes, if I'm lucky.
During the pandemic.
Yeah, I've directed a bunch of music videos and a couple of short films. I've written a feature and co-written on another feature. And I have a few projects in the works at the moment. And for the most part, my sort of day job is being a researcher for commercials and TV shows, and being a director's assistant as well. It's good experience.
Cool. So do you want to kick us off with the questions?
Yeah, and sort of part one is going to be the path, and then part two is going to be the process. So the first question of the path is, you went to Michaela School of Fine Arts in Cape Town. What were the pros and cons of going this route as opposed to sort of a more like traditional film school like AFDA?
Well, I think the reason that I went to Michaelis, or an art school rather than a film school, had a lot to do with, first of all, I think a lot of the directors that I liked at the time in high school, or like late high school, a lot of them seemed to not have gone to film school. And that like interested me, I guess, because I was having to think about that. So that made me think about what the pros of not going to a film school would be. And I think studying fine art, I got to engage with film. You know, it was, by the time I left Michaelis, I was sort of doing my like own film studies, and then making work in relation to whatever I was interested. I did a semester on Herzog. Werner Herzog. I did I'd actually never seen a Herzog film until second year, I think, or third year. So then I was like, okay, maybe it was the guilt of not having seen a Herzog film until. So then I like committed a full semester to watching every single Herzog film I could. And that guy's made a lot of films. That guy's made like over 70 films or something crazy. And then, I made work in relation to that. So I made like some video pieces and some print pieces in relation to that. And in the next semester, I made work looking at how landscape is used in cinema, and what it means to show space in films, and how space can be interpreted in film. And then I made a body of work again, like some sculptural stuff, video work. Yeah, it's the starting point with the Herzog stuff. I think it was a little bit more direct because I was referencing his films directly and using some of his clips. But with the landscape stuff, it became a little bit more abstracted, I think. In my fourth year, I actually shot a short film. I spent the first semester prepping and shooting that, and I had no idea what I was doing because I'd never been on a set before. I'd never taken a single class in anything to do with cinematography or writing or casting or editing or whatever. My experience was mostly self-taught, and all the Mark Haynes over there taught me a lot. Taught me most things that I know about editing in this world are taught by Mark Haynes.
And obviously a lot of our viewers know from On the Timeline, Mark does a lot of those episodes as well. So
the Mark Haynes. So I spent the first semester working on that because I wanted to apply for a master's in film in like overseas, like in America. And I sort of kind of forgot that I was in art school a little bit. And I think my lecturers started to like realize that too. Because, making a short is like so consuming. I mean, making any film is so consuming. So I shot and edited that by the end of the first semester. I was shot on a Blackmagic cinema camera that I had gotten because there was some independent film shooting in Cape Town, and I'd helped them with another project. That was the first set I'd ever been on. I helped them with another project early in the year, and I made like a deal with them to say, if I come PA on your set, on this independent film that you're shooting for a few days, can you pay me by letting me borrow your camera for the weekend? So that's how we got that camera.
Nice.
Yeah. And then my friend CJ shot it, who was a photography student at Michaelis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. And then the work that I made in the second semester in fourth year was completely different and about copying, what it means to copy.
It sounds like a lot of your work were like very sort of academic based, and then from the academic, obviously you talk about sculptures and video and stuff. So would you say that like being at art school really like made you focus from academic outwards, or do you think it was still obviously the art that you made that then inspired your writing?
Academic, yeah. I don't know. That I guess it was academic because the process was kind of academic, but I think that's like naturally a good place for me to be. I feel like, I mean, you're asking about writing specifically. When I'm writing something, I tend to do a lot of reading and watching before I start. So the idea is really only the seed for any project. And the feature that I've written, I did about a year of research before I wrote anything. And I think that's just how it is in general. I don't know if that comes from the Michaelis process. Maybe. Like I want to like fully understand the subject, I guess, before.
Yeah.
Or as fully understand it as possible, so I know what I can draw from. Yeah.
I think for me, when I helped out on Soft Copy, the short film, you're saying that you didn't know anything sort of related to the sort of actual, like sort of practical sort of filmmaking side at that point. But then when I helped out on it and I had been at AFTA and I had gotten that side of it, your project was fulfilling this whole other side that I felt AFTA wasn't fulfilling for me. And I was like, oh shit, I don't know anything related to like making something that's like conceptually strong, you know what I mean? And has all of that background in terms of how it's relating to other films, especially because one thing I feel isn't really touched on in my film education was how this film sits and exists within other films, which is what I feel like a lot of your Michaelis work also sort of looked at, and one thing that I was missing out almost entirely.
Yeah. I mean, I think to like sort of answer your first question in short, like I think I got the opportunity. I could just watch as many films as I want and like write it off as me contributing to my schoolwork. That was the good excuse, I think. Yeah, because I think this touches on the path and the process, and I'm sure you guys will agree that so much of what informs my like approach to work, to films, is watching, is other films. I definitely think that at this stage of my life, I'm like becoming like a filmmaker. I'm like definitely like getting there, but I'm definitely much more of a film watcher. Like the ratio is definitely like film watcher is much heavier than the basket of filmmaker. It's getting there, that's always the goal. But I don't know if you guys feel the same.
It probably also ties in with your researching job, because I'm sure you're like looking for like screenshots of films that fit into this brief, or you're probably doing that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, researching is, I think, something that I'm like, because of exactly that same reason, like I'm like naturally like inclined to it, because you have to watch so much and you have to like do like constant like analyzing as you're watching. But yeah, I don't know. There's like it's like research also like falls into the commercial side of filmmaking, I guess, much more.
Maybe I'm jumping a bit ahead. Yeah, because we're still on the path, right? So after you made the short in your honors, did you use that short then to try to make other films, or did you just go straight into sort of the traditional I need a job?
No, I didn't end up getting into the film school that I wanted to. And I mean, looking back now, I definitely wasn't ready. I think I would be like way more ready now, but like that's not what I want to do now. I want to make a film now. I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works. But that film didn't really have much of a life in the world. I also couldn't really like afford to enter festivals, and it sort of had the one function of being, the supplement for the master's application. So I mean, it still exists in the world, but it definitely didn't lead to me making more films just then. I went sort of straight into researching at a production company in Joburg. I was a full-time researcher there for 2 years-ish. Just over 2 years, and I learned a lot. But I think the last year-ish that I was there kind of felt like a plateau. Yeah, I'd like gotten everything I could out of that.
Tell us a little bit about that decision to do research specifically and not something else.
I don't know how much of a decision it was. It was so like literally a week before I finished at Michaelis, I was offered this job at this production company in Joburg, and it was at a film production company. I think my idea of what that meant was quite different from the actual work that I ended up doing, because I also knew nothing about what researching meant, like what that means, especially in the commercials context. So this company mostly did commercials. They did have some other projects going on, but I don't think it was a very informed decision.
In terms of like going to the company, you said you didn't really get what you wanted. What were you looking for?
Yeah, I think my expectations were to be more involved in like a meaningful creative process. So if I thought the projects that we're working on were going to be more meaningful and were going to be more like substantive, like a film that I would be interested in, that I could contribute creatively to in whatever capacity. But that was definitely not the nature of the work. It felt like a bit of an office job. Like I was like wake up 9 to 5, sort of go in, do some stuff on a computer. One time the printer was broken, and the production manager was like, "Hey, can't you fix the printer for us? Didn't you study printmaking?" That's quite a good one. That's quite a classic zinger. But I fixed the printer and I helped set up emails and that sort of thing. Yeah, but I did get to be on big commercial sets when there were shoots. And obviously in a commercial, there's a lot of money. So you shoot with the top end gear, you shoot with experienced crew, you get to see how lighting systems work. You get to work with a range of DOPs. So I got some incredible experience at this company. I really did. And by the end, by the time I left, I was ADing on sets, and I had developed a good relationship with a lot of the directors there. Yeah, it by the time I left, I was ready to leave, and I'd gotten everything I could out of there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you always know going into this that you wanted to be a director or a writer? Obviously, you did make the short film in your studies, but did you was there a moment where you were during at this production where you were like, this is the thing that I want to do, or not really?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, since I was, I don't know, Mark can tell you, I don't know, 15 or something. Writing and directing was always the goal. I mean, because it was always about film, right? It was like, as soon as I realized that that's what someone can do, a lot of things clicked for me. I was interested in all of the elements that make up a film: music, acting, story, composition. All of these things are so that you can have a whole career on one of those paths. But being a director, you sort of have to be involved in all of that stuff, which is super appealing to me. So as soon as I realized that, I knew it's what I wanted to do.
So you mentioned that you had different roles on the set that you worked on. I know personally, when we'd hang out and you'd just speak about what you've been doing, you would say that, you'd done this, you'd had this position on this set and this position on that set and this position on that set. And so I just wanted to ask, what are the different roles you've had on sets, and what are some of the sort of the key takeaways that you've had from each?
It was during that period, it was mostly PAing initially, being a production assistant, which actually the job varies so much being a production assistant, depending on the scale of the job. Sometimes you're the only PA, sometimes you're one of 5 or whatever. And I'm sure on huge Hollywood films they have 30 PAs. And that, I think it's a really good place to start getting experience on set, because you're part of the AD's department, but you're also kind of involved in every department. So because you're the production assistant, anyone in the production really can ask you for assistance. So a lot of carrying stuff, a lot of lifting, a lot of pushing and pulling, a lot of painting studio walls, different colors. Yeah, and sometimes you're locking off the set. And I mean, I think that's the most common role for a PA. You're locking off the set, making sure people are being quiet, sort of echoing the AD, that sort of thing. But I was also always try to be close to the director, because I worked with the directors and I often did research for those same directors. I sort of transitioned into being an unofficial director's assistant, pretty much just shadowing them. That being super observant, really trying to stay focused as much as possible throughout the day, which can get pretty hard on set, because you're doing multiple takes and then there's a big break in between, and you're only actually rolling the camera for such a small fraction of the day. That's often when people think, okay, now I've got to focus. But I try to stay as focused as possible throughout the shoot, to preempt things, to get the director his coffee, to go bring the ladder, to go fetch the actress, whatever, before someone needed to ask me necessarily. And then I started ADing on small shoots. So in mostly studio shoots. I mostly AD'd on let's just say a famous chicken brand, deep fried. The shots where the drumsticks like fall and crash into each other in super slow motion.
Yeah.
Those are like, that's like take 200 that you're looking at there.
Awesome.
So I AD'd on a bunch of studio shoots for one of the directors, which was a really cool experience. And that's pretty much running the set. But if you're working with good people, I mean, because I look really young and I was really young to be an AD on those shoots, like by the end of the day, people started listening to me because I realized like I understood what I was doing. But at the beginning of the day, or like, I mean, if I'd never worked with a crew member before, they like were a little bit like suspicious of like, who's this? Like, I guess I was maybe 23 or 24, but I looked 17 or 18. Who's this kid telling me to cut? You know, it's yeah. But then by the time I'd like work with those crew members again, we developed a rapport and a sense of trust. So that was a good experience. Very stressful.
Is this still during the time that you were working at that company?
Yeah, this is still when I was working in Joburg. And then at the same time, I was trying to find my own project. I directed a very small short that I don't think anyone's going to see anytime soon. Mark edited that.
And it's good.
Yeah. You think it's good?
Yeah.
I don't know about it anymore. I'm like a little bit.
I'd like to see
it. Know about it. Let's give it some space and time. I've stepped back from that project, and I also directed a bunch of music videos as well during the time I was in Joburg. Also, all self-produced, pretty much. The production company did help with the one, but yeah, it was a varied range of experience. And then in mid 2019, I left that company and started freelancing.
Tell us about your freelancing. Yeah. Obviously freelancing in researching, right?
Yeah, mostly research, but also
AD and
a couple of AD jobs on set, and some writing work as well. But by the time I'd left that company, I had started working with Brown Flamingo. So I think I was with Brown Flamingo or started the relationship with Brown Flamingo for about 6 months into my last 6 months at that company, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're freelancing. Would you say you're freelancing for Brown Flamingo, or did they employ you? I'm a little confused there.
Yeah, so it is maybe a bit confusing. So there's sort of like two branches. And the one branch is like mostly commercial researching, occasional work on set, ADing on smaller shoots. And then the Brown Flamingo work, so Brown Flamingo is an independent film production company that started a few, like 2 or 3, maybe more now, 3 or 4 years ago, by Nolita Mkulusi. She's like a very, very cool producer, very sharp, very cool. So it's a production company, but it's also modeled as a collective. So it's very collaborative. All of the people involved, and it's a group of writers and directors and a couple of producers, all collaborate on each other's work. By the time I left that production company, I had gotten involved co-writing a screenplay with my friend Mzonke Maloney, who had written a draft, but he'd brought me on to do a rewrite, I guess, to just look at that script and see where it could do with some attention. what was working, what wasn't working, to reshape it a little bit. And so Msonke works with Nolita at Brown Flamingo. Yeah, so I was researching freelancing and writing for the next year. And then we were about to go into production for that film that I had co-written on. We'd secured funding from local funders, the NFEF, IDC, DTI. This was in March last year. We'd started scouting locations. We did castings. We were like polishing up scenes in the script. I mean, we were literally like sitting in castings, watching people come, like big famous actors come do callbacks and talking to DOPs. And then late March, early April, we'd gone to the location a bunch of times. We did a shoot day with the DOP, and we were like about to start official prep for this film. And then obviously the global pandemic happened.
Little thing, I might have heard of it.
Yeah, so that put the brakes on that project, which was, you know, quite a lot to process. But in a way, I feel like my involvement was not finished with the project, but it was the bulk of my involvement with the project was like already done by that point. But it was a heavy one to take.
Was the film just straight up cancelled, or did they just postpone it?
No, so the film is still very much alive, but I think, as is often the case with a project that was started 3 years ago, the way that you relate to things on the page change obviously over that period. So we're probably going to do we're probably going to do a rewrite in the next couple of months, just because, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well, that it's not only like a personal thing, like how I personally relate to the film, but how the film or how the script
I grew.
No, it's like relative to the zeitgeist, relative to the discourse. You know, like how relevant does this film feel?
Yeah. Now,
with what we have in front of us, it maybe felt way more relevant a year ago, but we need to shift it to feel more meaningful, I guess. Something that felt very poignant a year ago may seem obvious today. So that's how I'm going into the rewrite.
Cool. So maybe can you just sort of summarize what have you been doing, obviously, since lockdown, and then if you can disclose any plans, please tell us what you're up to.
Cool. So then the lockdown happened, and I moved back to Cape Town with my partner. So I'm from Joburg, but obviously I studied in Cape Town and moved back to Joburg for a few years, and now I'm back in Cape Town. And I like the first half of lockdown, I like most people, I don't know, like it wasn't, my like priorities were sort of undefined in a way, just because there was so much uncertainty in the air. And then in about July, August, Nolita gave me a call. My producer gave me a call and said that she had an idea to make an anthology film with the Brown Flamingo collective, to get a few of us involved and to each write and direct our own short around a certain theme that would live together in a sequence as a feature film. So an anthology of 4 short films. So that was in like July, and then August we'd meet every week, and then I wrote the screenplay through the month of like August pretty much, and then we shot early September. So that was very unexpected and very different to the way that I usually approach work. Like I said, I spent a year on the first screenplay before I even wrote anything, and that was like an entire short written and shot in like 2 or 3 months. But obviously with the collective, you have that support and that input. So that's in post-production at the moment. It's very exciting.
Do you know when that's coming out, or is that not yet?
We're aiming to do festivals over the next year from May or June or whatever, so we're busy figuring that out. So hopefully it'll be finished. Being finished and coming out are kind of two different things. Hopefully it'll be finished in the next couple of months, and then come out. I don't know. I have no idea. So cool. That's the one thing. And then I've also been working with another production company in Cape Town, assisting the director. I worked on a TV show. It was super fun. Just trying to get to know some filmmakers in Cape Town as well, and the film industry a little bit, and crew and all of that stuff. So that's now we're in the present.
Amazing. I think that's very cool. I mean, for part one, the path that explains exactly how you obviously went from film school or art school to where you are now. Maybe just to end off, you could just end off part one at least. You could just tell us maybe if you have any advice for anybody else looking to become a director.
Yeah. Cool. Well, in terms of advice, I think first of all, I think the most important thing to say is that I'm very much at the beginning. I feel like I'm at the beginning of my career, or like at the end of the beginning of my career. So I speak from a relatively limited experience. But from that limited experience, I can say that if you don't know this already, you have to accept it as soon as possible, that there's no if you want to become a filmmaker, there's no clear path. I think every person has their own path, and that path, and I think this is the part, I understood that I think when I started, but the part that I wasn't told is that you don't necessarily define that path. You're a part of defining that path, but you can't look 5 years into the future and know that, and see every step that's going to take you there. You can have the goal in mind, but start to accept that you're only a part of defining the path to getting to that goal. That's a little bit of a philosophical piece of advice. It's not very practical, is it? Maybe the second piece of advice is always bring a hat to set. That's that's good. That's good.
It's very good. But it's exactly what you're saying. It's also good to know as a newcomer exactly what you're saying, because if a lot of traditional jobs have that thing of okay, you start as a junior accountant and then you get promoted to a senior accountant or an assistant to, I don't know how accounting works, but there's a very clear path in these traditional jobs. And I think entering the film industry can be very overwhelming, not knowing how am I going to get to where I want to be. So I think you saying just start, and then eventually you will get there. I think that's very good advice. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So that's it for part one. So we will see you in 2 weeks, but Evan, we're going to be recording part two right now. Cool, man. Cheers.
Bye.
And that was it for part one of our conversation with Evan, talking all about his path to sort of really try and understand how he got to where he is today.
And part two of the conversation is going to be all about Evan's process. So if you want to hear about that coming up in 2 weeks, then make sure you're subscribed. And also, if you have any comments or questions for us, then make sure to leave them down in the comments below. We try and respond to all of them. And if you like this whole thing that we're doing and you like these videos, then hit a like. Hit that like button. Just.
And did you know that there's also a full audio version of this podcast available everywhere you listen to podcasts? So we head on over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else and check it out. But until next time, Go out there, stay safe, and
Make your movie.